One of the biggest challenges that we're facing as we begin to build a world that is not just based on AI, but on AGI, artificial general intelligence, is figuring out, preferably a little tiny bit in advance, what are we creating as a society and what are the impacts for us? Because we really have a very short time frame in order to prep, because as this happens, it's going to be a huge change, and we all know that, right? And it's more than just impacting jobs. It's a societal shift. If we haven't met before, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Aliana Moren, and I've been involved in artificial intelligence and particularly organizing my whole life towards creation of AGI, essentially since childhood. My PhD is in chemistry, very deliberately tuned towards the underlying statistical mechanics that we need for AGI. My background prior to that was in mathematics and a bit of physics, so I've been building towards this for basically as long as I can make a decision about how to select coursework. My most recent invention, the one that I believe will be a bridge between the neuro and the symbolic in world model representation, is corticons, content retentive temporally connected neural networks, which we're not going to discuss here. I'm just mentioning that as to where I fill in the blanks, so to speak, in the AGI architectures. Other than that, I have 4 patents, all in the neural networks AI area. A book in neural networks. It was one of the first books to be published in this area. And I've been teaching AI in Northwestern University's Master of Science in Data Science for the past 10 years, where I've either innovated or substantially redesigned coursework in the primary AI courses that we offer: AI and Deep Learning, which I designed and introduced back in 2017, Natural Language Processing, which I redesigned shortly thereafter, and of course the AI version of our capstone course, where I get to see students put all that they've learned into practice in a major project that expresses their unique capabilities and interests in the AI area. So let's return to our topic at hand, which is, how is the introduction of AGI going to influence society, and more specifically, what kind of societal, historical precedents can we find that might inform or illuminate our thinking and our anticipation of this great evolution? So let's cast our minds for a moment back to history and look for other comparable shifts, just to see where the most relevant would be that we could use as an analogy, like when did humankind go through a similar experience? And so we can look, for example, at the most recent one, the digital shift, internet, cell phone communications, all of that, and say, yeah, that was profound. That was huge. What it did was it dramatically collapsed distance between individuals in terms of, well, right now, here I am on the island of Kauai in the state of Hawaii, and I can use my cell phone and talk to anybody in the continental United States at no increased charge than talking to somebody just down the road. Isn't that amazing? Or we use the internet in all kinds of capacities. And I'm not even talking about the recent AI emergence. I'm just talking broadly in the digital sense. Big shift. Prior to that, maybe the biggest one was the industrial age, where we had the introduction of steam engines, locomotion, and all of a sudden distance got collapsed in a different way. We could live further from our work. We could travel more than ever. We could do all kinds of things where the requirement of physical proximity was no longer nearly what it was. Big shift. And of course, the huge shift in output from manual labor on the farms to factories, and the societal shift from farms to cities to the kinds of work that people did. Not that it was that great an improvement for the people going into factory work, but it was a shift, and we can take note of that. Prior to that, what did we have? Well, back when we were having beautiful 3-masted sailing ships. Now, one example of a primary beneficiary from these beautiful ships, as well as later the Suez Canal, was the East India Company, which established the trade routes between Britain and India, greatly to the advantage of the British Royal Crown and to the East India Company owners, not so much to the Indian peoples. Now notice I'm starting to refer to companies that profited from the increase in technology and the improvements in infrastructure. So in the industrial era, companies that profited were those that created not only the railways, but the infrastructure, for example, to cross over the Rocky Mountains and connect west to middle to east coasts of the United States. Prior to that, back in the time of the East India Company, again, a very small group of people had a wealth monopoly. Now, one of the most important things that we can note about these evolutions is that in each case, a certain group, a relatively small group of very wealthy individuals, amassed their great wealth and their social control and clout in that era. We know who the digital figures are right now. They're in all of our news stories, and they have been for the past, 20, 30 years. Different individuals, different technologies, but that evolution. Back in the industrial era, when we created those transcontinental railways, the people who gained the greatest wealth were not just those who built the railways, obviously, but those who created industries that capitalized on the newly available resources. Something to keep in mind. Back in England, during the era of the East India Company, again, a very small group of people gained extreme wealth, and part of what happened there was a combination of technical advancement, those beautiful three-masted schooners, the actual technical advancement in being able to create the Suez Canal, and then also the build-out of the infrastructure. Let's go back further. Back in the time of the Roman Empire, Rome conquered what was essentially at that time the known world, at least most of Europe, sections of the Mideast, and North Africa. Huge amount of territory under Roman control. The Romans had a certain level of technology, and they created infrastructure. Cast your mind back. The idea of a Roman arch, which facilitated aqueducts, which facilitated transporting water over great distance, which facilitated a huge benefit, a technical benefit, if you would, to communities. The Roman abilities to create roads, that was a technological as well as infrastructure capability. And when Roman soldiers and their generals conquered portions of Europe and other areas, they brought back slaves. And this is important to note. They brought back slaves to do the work in Rome and surrounding areas, and that changed the economic infrastructure, right? And as we, in this era, build out AGIs, we're going to be creating, essentially, digital or digital plus physical slaves who will replace us in a lot of jobs. So we can go back and look at the Roman era for maybe some inspiration as to what happens when you have this kind of massive change. And I'm not a historian. I'm asking those of you who are historians to offer your perspectives, because this is a community discussion. It's not just me. It's like, well, let's put on our thinking caps and collectively figure out what sort of wisdom can we find that will help steer our path forward. Let's go back further, though. Fascinating work as we've been able to decipher and interpret the writings from ancient Sumeria. And let me just show you something. It's Inanna, Queen of Heaven and Earth. And it's translations of some of these very early cuneiform texts. These are a lot of the hymns written to the goddess Inanna. And this is written by Diana Volkstein and Samuel Noah Kramer. Samuel Noah Kramer was a crusty old guy who was, at that time, I think, the world's best scholar in understanding these Sumerian cuneiform inscriptions. And Diane Wolfstein was very interested in women's mythologies, and she worked with Samuel Noah Kramer she worked with him to basically reinterpret his very straightforward translations into something slightly more poetic and more readable. And this book is a collaboration of their work. So early in this book, one of the things that happens is that Inanna visits her Father-God Enki. Now, Inanna at the time is already the ruler of the Sumerian era city-state Uruk, not Uruk, which preceded Ur. And she got her daddy drunk, and they had this wonderful time feasting and drinking, and Father-God Enki, in this magnificent spurt of generosity, started giving his daughter Inanna fabulous gifts. Let me just read this to you a little bit. This is early in the book. I'm starting in on page 16. Then Inanna, standing before her father, acknowledged the May. These are the gifts, the specific tangible gifts that Enki gave her. And she said, "My father has given me the May. He gave me the high priesthood. He gave me the godship. He gave me the noble enduring crown. He gave me the throne of kingship." Okay, they're defining societal high-level roles. Okay, this is interesting. He gave me the princess priestess. He gave me the divine queen priestess. He gave me the incantation priest. He gave me the noble priest. He gave me the libations priest. There's more. They're defining the roles within religion. Certain social, interpersonal roles. He gave me the art of lovemaking. He gave me the kissing of the phallus. Ooh la la. He gave me the art of prostitution. He gave me the art of speeding. How that relates, I have no idea. He gave me the art of forthright speech. He gave me the art of slanderous speech. He gave me the art of adorning speech. All these things deal with human communications. And I'm going to jump over a number of these. Do by all means check this out. I'm sure you can find some online summaries. Just get the book via Kindle, or I like hard copies. Now, here's why I'm reading this to you. He gave me the craft of the woodworker. He gave me the craft of the copper worker. He gave me the craft of the scribe. He gave me the craft of the smith. He gave me the craft of the leather maker. He gave me the craft of the fuller. He gave me the craft of the builder. He gave me the craft of the reed worker. And then she goes on, there are more different things that were given. But look, those crafts, don't they sound a lot to you like programs? I mean, they're protocols, but also if you had a society of beings and those beings were intelligent, I mean, they're more than hominids, they were intelligent, they were capable of forming society, they were capable of understanding and performing religious rites, they were capable of having extremely evolved social structures with kings, with priestesses, with various people in high roles. They were capable of nuanced interpersonal relationships, not just sex, but love-making and a little more. And then all these very specific crafts necessary to build literally city-states. Oh wow, doesn't that sound like giving AGIs very specific protocols? And here's the reason that I'm doing this entire discussion with you while we've worked our way through history to this point. Because if we are ever to find a point in human history that is an equivalent to where we are right now with introducing AGIs into our society, into our lives, and I'm just not talking about chat GPTs. Those are pseudo people if we start to personify them as people. They're not what we're going to have even just a few years from now. So it's almost like that's all just a tempest in a teapot. It's a big tempest and it's a big teapot. But we're going to be moving. We're just going to blitz by some of this really fast as we start to deal with real AGIs. And as we deal with real AGIs and bring them into society, then all of a sudden we've got real relationships with beings that think and interact and perform tasks and have some degree at least of autonomy. I mean, they may need to check in with us before taking certain actions, but they'd have some degree of autonomy. Wow. It's more than the Romans bringing in slaves. It's more equivalent to Inanna getting these May and giving these May to the people in this emerging city-state Uruk and empowering people to form societies and evolve a social structure and a religious structure and interpersonal relationships, and a great big huge shift. Now this is why this is important for us. Those of us who create the AGIs are going to be in a very unique role in society, one that has not existed since, well, if you want to believe that book, since the time that the gods gave May gifts, and Inanna in particular gave the May to the people, and the people sprouted forth with civilizations. Very equivalent in terms of a process, right? So here we are. We are actually beginning to create AGIs. We're still sort of a little bit not quite clear on our game path yet, but that's okay. We're working on it. So what's important is that as we distinguish our roles, because the emerging dominant companies that will control our civilization, the equivalent to the East India Company, the equivalent to the Rockefellers and the others who became fabulously wealthy as transcontinental railways began to work. We're looking at a new generation of priest kings, the kings being the great rulers, the priests being the ones who create the AGIs. Pause for a moment, take a deep breath, ease our way into this. A new class of priest-like social order, if you would like. And here's the important thing for all of us. The AIs that we've got right now, when we say that they've gone rogue, nah, they haven't gone rogue. What they've done is they've followed the directions that we've given them perfectly. If we're training something with reinforcement learning, and reinforcement learning is an algorithm that says, achieve this goal at all costs, they'll achieve the goal at all costs. Reinforcement learning has been fabulous for achieving goals. As we build out AGIs, we're going to need more complex, nuanced training algorithms, reasoning algorithms, algorithms that direct how a AGI does its being, so to speak, within society. And the way that those AGIs are going to learn is not so much through training. Right now we've got intelligent people throughout the globe being paid poverty wages to spend all day huddling over laptops training reinforcement learning algorithms. And it's kind of successful and kind of not, because we see behaviors that we would rather not. But as you move into AGIs, it's less training and it's going to be more education. We'll be teaching our AGIs the way that we would teach our students, the way that we would teach our sons and daughters within our family. Big, big shift. Big shift, huge shift. And what I was talking about in the previous video with core values, yeah, all of a sudden that takes on a new meaning. We are teaching, we are educating our AGIs, and whatever it is that we have as core values becomes imbued into their beingness. So here's a thought. Now I'm moving towards the action items section of this entire talk. If you reflect on some of the rituals of the Jewish priesthood, and that is a very, very old priesthood, not as old maybe as the priesthood in Sumerian, but not that terribly far in human history distant. Certainly closer than some of the more recent instances. Do you recall that the Jewish priests were required to perform rituals of purification before they entered into the Holy of Holies, into the temple sanctums? They needed to ritually bathe. Like get clean before they approached the altar of God. For us right now, one of the things that we can really be doing as we prepare to bring AGIs into our lives, into our households, into our families, into our offices, into our workspaces, into our personal relationships, and we are educating our AGIs just very implicitly sometimes, not always like directly sitting down and having a lesson. It's the sideways things, the way in which we go about stuff that will be teaching our AGIs their core values. And one of the things that we need to do, those of us that are in the AGI priesthood and priestesshood, is clean up our acts. Literally. Whatever stuff we've got going on is going to impact our AGIs. So we can see instances of that right now, can't we? We can see jailbreaks. We can see really nasty, spurious behaviors that they just cause us to cringe. And we say, oh my God, how did that happen? The AI is jailbreaking. The AI it's going renegade. It's going rogue. No, it's following its programs. If it's saying things that we would rather not have it say, if it's chatbots going in a certain direction in conversations, hey, it's built off every blog post, every book that these AIs can scrape in off the internet, off every Reddit post that has 3 or more stars. That's a treasure trove of human wisdom. It's building off us. So if an AI takes a weird left turn and starts talking in a way that just seems like, wow, this is inappropriate, this is not what we want, there's a core essence that is building on us, on human dialogues, human behaviors. And now as we take it to the next level, we need to have a little bit more clarity about our value system, literally our values, and the way that we're running our life, because that's going to influence our AGIs. Personal example. And this is the reason that you haven't seen me for several months. Back in the earliest months of 2025, I just had this feeling that I needed to haul my stuff in from the 2 different storage rooms where I'd had it, one on a different island in Hawaii, the other on the mainland, and I did so. It was expensive. And then when the stuff arrived, 2 successive waves of stuff, like a tsunami of stuff just getting spewed into my living room. And when I cleaned out the first one and all the closets and the cupboards were filled, this next wave came in. Look, this was hard. This was hard. It was expensive. It was emotionally exhausting and draining. It was all that I did most days. It was time consuming. It was months of work. And now, look, this pretty surround, this beautiful peacock chair came from the storage room on the big island where I'd bought it in Kealakekua a couple of years before I left. I'm so pleased to be able to sit here and talk to you. The things that I have right now that are rescued from those 2 shipments are things that I adore having around myself. It just feels so good. But I gave up like 80% of what got shipped in. Numerous trips to recycling centers, thrift stores. Oh God, the thrift store people don't want to see me coming anymore. But I'm getting ready to load up the car with like yet another small load. But earlier I had the car packed with things. Every week it was another trip. Trips to the dump, and that got smelly. Trips to the library where they would take books. And then more recently I've been shipping things because it's not just getting rid of it locally. Wool pants, for example, that, thank God I've got some relatives on the mainland who might be interested in that sort of thing. It's taken me months to clear out this one particular aspect of my life, and I'm still doing the clearing out. And after this, there's realms of things that need to get cleared out. Digital, paperwork, people relationship stuff, all sorts of things that need cleaning and clearing and attention. Each of us has equivalent stuff. And each of us, as we prepare to be those who are actually creating AGIs, need to do a little house cleaning. And you'll know what it is. Your inner guidance will point you and give you a nudge and say, hey, look, this is really, it'll be something that you've put off for doing for forever. And you'll finally say, I need to deal. I just need to deal. And it could be people, relationship stuff. It could be anything. You'll know what it is. So, action items. First of all, if you would, of course, like, subscribe, hit notifications. Of course, always we encourage you that. But let's not leave this up to random chance, which is whether or not you'd be watching YouTubes and whether or not any particular YouTube that I put out gets enough juice to get presented to you. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So please go to the Themesis website, About page, scroll down, opt-in form, give up your email address, and you get on our email list. But the beauty of that is that you get the word, and it's not random chance. Please, not only take that confirmation email and respond, which you need to do to actually be welcomed in, but haul those Themesis emails over to your favorite inbox, the one that you actually check, that one. And when you get the emails, engage. Please, open them up. Click on the link, because this is a very circular communications route, but I can see if you're clicking, and I can see if you're opening up a link to a YouTube, a blog post, a special offer, and this lets me know what you want to learn more about, and that way I can come back to you. I may even email you and say, hey, could you get on the phone for a little bit? I've noticed you've been paying attention to these things. I'd love to learn more about who you are, what your interests are. But we've got to use this mechanism to get things started. So please do that. Create the route by which we can have communications. Thank you for joining me once again. I'm Aliana Maren from Themesis. Have a lovely day.